and the writer of this chapter is a person called Ruskin Bond. So before we begin anything, we should also be a little aware about Ruskin. Okay, so we will read a little about him and see what kind of a person, what kind of writing he initiated. Okay, I'll quickly read it out to you. Ruskin Bond, who was born in 1934, is an Indian author of British descent. That means his forefathers, his earlier generations, lived in Britain, in United Kingdoms, and they gradually came here to India, and it was here that Ruskin Bond was born here and he settled here. He has written over 500 short stories, essays, and novels. Most of his works are influenced by life in the hill stations at the foothills of the Himalayas, where he spent his childhood. So, Ruskin Bond, even today, lives in Missouri. Okay, if you go there, you visit him, you will see he's still there. He's very old now, and he has spent most of the times at the foothills of the Himalayas. His first novel, The Room on the Roof, was written when he was 17. Children, children, extra kind of noise, whoever is creating, let me tell you, you are disturbing the whole class. And firstly, I am not bothered. I'm not bothered if you are not paying attention. Please do not form this group gallery. Okay, I don't want this gallery to be formed. Don't form this gallery. Come as an individual, do not come as a guest also. Please make sure this is not happening in my class anymore. And can you see only a few are visible with their DPs? Diksha, Ijaz, Fiza, then guest. Those who have joined as guests, please start making your profiles. Otherwise, very soon I'll be locking up the link and you will not be able to join in. Ishita, your profile is not visible. Joshita, then live guest, then Mehak, no, sorry, Mehak hai. Mayank, Mojit, Parth, Prince Verma, Sachin Tiwari. All of you, your DPs are not visible, and I'm showing it to you. You can see it also. Okay, so his first work was The Room on the Roof, and it was written when he was just 17 years old. Okay, and his popular novel is The Blue Umbrella, was made into a Hindi film of the same name, which was awarded the National Film Award for Best Children's Film in 2007. So if you on a YouTube want to see this movie, The Blue Umbrella, you can type the name and you will see it's a national award winning film, and I think you should see it. He was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 1992 for
आई आवाज
what?
मीटिंग देखिए और में कैमरा भी ऑन ये देखिए ऑन
Oh God. For Our Trees Still Grow in Dehra has novel in English. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999 and the Padma Bhushan in 2014. He now lives with his adopted family in Landore, Missouri. So you can see that he still lives in Missouri, and his most of the life was on the foothills of Himalayas in Dehradun. This Dehra means Dehradun, okay? Uh, and he was a renowned writer. He is very popular and is known even still. So we are going to read about one of his works. So we begin The Kite Maker. Let's read the story about an old kite maker and his grandson. So let us talk about the story where there was one old kite maker and he had a grandson, and the story takes place between them. There was but one tree in the street known as Gali Ramnath, an ancient banyan that had grown through the cracks of an abandoned mosque. and little Ali's kite had caught in its branches. The boy, barefoot and clad only in a torn shirt, ran along the cobblestones of the narrow street to where his grandfather sat, nodding dreamily in the sunshine of their backyard. So now the story opens at a street called Gali Ramnath. एक गली थी जिसका नाम था गली रामनाथ, and there was an old banyan tree there, very ancient, very old. Okay, and how it had grown, nobody had planted it, but because of the crack in a mosque, it had grown there in that crack and had grown into a big, huge tree. And Ali, who was a small little boy, his kite got stuck in that tree and he came running all the way from there barefoot. That means he was not wearing anything and clad only in a torn shirt and was just wearing a torn shirt, torn and tattered it was. Then he ran along the stone filled road, the narrow street, and came running to his grandfather. And now, where was his grandfather sitting? He was sitting dreamily. Now, old people, most of the time, they sit very silently, and most of the time, they are drowsy and nodding their heads sleepily. So, he was just sitting at the backyard in the courtyard, backside of the courtyard, आंगन जिसे कहते हैं, पीछे का आंगन, and he was sitting there in the sunshine. Grandfather, shouted the boy, my kite has gone. Now, see, can you see the picture? Grandfather is sitting, and the boy came running, complaining that, dear grandfather, my kite has gone. That means it has vanished. Now, where has it vanished? It had got stuck into the banyan tree. Now, the old man woke from his daydream with a start and, raising his head, displayed a beard that would have been white had it not been dyed red with mehndi leaves. So now, listening to the sound of the grandchild, Ali, who was shouting his grandfather's name and telling him that my kite is gone, that means it has got stuck in the tree. Now, this startled the man, the old man who was daydreaming and sleeping, half asleep he was. He got, जिसे कहते हैं ना चौंक जाना, he got startled and he raised his head. And when he raised his head, we could see a beard. That means the दाढ़ी जिसे कहते हैं, ठीक है? The beard was uh, because of the mehendi, he had dyed it with the mehendi leaves, and that is why it was appearing golden or brownish colored. So if he would have not dyed it, it would have, the beard would have been white because he was an old man. But because of the color of the mehendi leaves, it appeared to be of the mehendi colored. Okay. Did the twine break? He asked. I know that kite twine is not what it used to be. Now, Ali's grandfather, who was a kite maker himself, so the first question which came into his mind was, he said, did the twine break? Now, what is a twine? It is the kite's, this area where the uh, thread is tied to the main reel, whatever you say it. So he's asked कि क्या उसका गांठ खुल गई थी, did the twine break? And he then said कि earlier in the olden times the twine was made with a better thread than what it is made nowadays. Now the son answers, that means the grandson, no grandfather, the kite is stuck in the banyan tree. So now the boy says, no grandfather, it is not that the twine break, but because it got stuck in the banyan tree that it is gone. Okay, the old man chuckled. Read it along with me. See here. The old man chuckled. You have yet to learn how to fly a kite properly, my child, and I am too old to teach you. That's the pity of it. But you shall have another. So now the old man says, oh God, you still have to learn the art of flying kite. And I am too old, otherwise, I would have taught you. But it's a pity. It's really sad that I'm not able to do that, and he regrets it. He feels very bad about it. So he says, okay, now let me give you another kite. So he gives Ali another kite. He had just finished making a new kite from bamboo paper and thin silk, and it lay in the sun, firming up. It was a pale pink kite with a small green tail. The old man handed it to Ali, and the boy raised himself on his toes and kissed his grandfather's hollowed out cheek. So now the grandfather, since he had no other alternative to teach him how to fly a kite, he gave him another. And this kite he had recently made out of the bamboo paper, and it had a little portion of silk in it. And it was laid in the sun for drying up, okay, so that it gets firmer and crisper. It was a pale pink kite, that means the off pink color, and it had a green tail, that means a small little green tail. You can see it in the picture, the pale pink kite with a green tail, little bit is shown there. And the old man very happily handed it to him, and with the return, the happiness was just equal. Ali also returned that same happiness. With that happiness, he kissed his grandfather's hollowed out cheeks. That means the cheeks were hollow. That means he was a lean and thin man. He was growing old. Any old man has a, hollow cheeks. So he also just kissed him on the cheek. The Ali kissed him on the cheek, and then he went away. I will not lose this one, he said. This kite will fly like a bird. And he turned on his heels and skipped out of the courtyard. So now Ali was so happy to get another kite, and he said, I promise you, I will not lose this one. I will fly it like a bird, just as a bird glides and swings along while it is flying in a smooth manner. He promised that he would be more careful about the next kite which he was given. And he turned very quickly on his heels and skipped out of the courtyard. That means he left his grandfather and went away. The old man remained dreaming in the sun. His kite shop was gone, the premises long since sold to a junk dealer. But he still made kites for his own amusement and for the benefit of his grandson Ali. Not many people bought kites these days. Adults disdained them, and children preferred to spend their money at the cinema. So now, this old man, once Ali had left, he again sat down to daydream. Please switch off your mic. Do not waste this teaching class into this interrupted call. Sit very still, sit very alert. Let's use every minute of the class peacefully in learning process. So he says that once Ali left, the old man again started daydreaming, sitting idly and taking nap, a quick nap, okay? And it was then that he started dreaming that there was a big, huge kite shop he had, and the premises where he had this kite shop was long been sold. It was given away to the junk dealer. That means they were poor people, they could not afford the area, and finally they had sold that area. But he still made kites. Ali's grandfather, he still made kites, though the shop was no longer there and the premises was also sold, but he just made those kites still because of his passion for it. And then he wanted to give it to his younger grandson Ali, who loved flying kites, and it also amused grandfather when he made this. So he only made now the kites regularly for his grandson Ali. And he also knew that now very few people took up to kite flying, because gradually the people were disdaining it. Disdaining means they had left the idea, they have barred the idea. They did not consider it good enough to spend time in kite flying. So many people had given up kite flying, and then there were children as they were growing up, they were not interested in flying kites, as they were more interested now in watching the cinemas. Now, gradually the film industry was growing. So it was at that time that the people were switching over from these kind of hobbies of kite flying to the recent ones of watching cinema. Moreover, there were not many open spaces left for flying of kites. The city had swallowed up the open grassland that had stretched from the old fort's walls to the river bank. So now the another reason why people had given up flying kite was that the city life was growing up. There were more cemented areas, the open spaces, the big grasslands were being occupied in building up the buildings, etc. There were lesser places and there were no areas left for people to fly kites. So these were few of the reasons why the hobby of earlier, the flying kites as a hobby was being disdained or was given up. So the reasons are, firstly, they were people considered it unworthy to fly kite any longer. Then second is the coming up of cinemas. It had attracted the young people towards it. And finally, these young children had given up flying kites and preferred watching cinema. Apart from this, the city life was growing up. There were fewer spaces, open spaces needed to fly a kite. And now, with the building up, coming up of cities, the city life had removed those open spaces where people could gather earlier and fly kites. So we stop here for today and we will continue it in the next class. I hope till here everything is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Then we stop here for today. I will be sending you two videos, one of the question answers of the chapter Fairyland, and the other is the explanation of this kite maker. Okay?